So we're going to start at the front of the mat, tucking the tailbone in, activating into those lower core muscles, rolling the shoulders back and lifting the chest up towards the ceiling. Placing the arms alongside the body and extending the fingers alongside the hips right down towards the floor. Grounding yourself through your feet and taking a couple of deep breaths, squeezing the tailbone under, activating through that lower core, nice neutral pelvis, rib cage pulling in towards the belly as well. You're going to take a deep breath in, reach the arms up and overhead, drawing them back and then swan diving forward, allowing the arms to fall towards the ground and then swaying from side to side, brushing the fingertips along the ground if comfortable, otherwise just swaying, working into those hips, working into those hip flexors and working those hammies, gently warming them up. Rolling up one vertebra at a time, all the way to standing, roll those shoulders back, and then inhale, reach the arms out and up, overhead, and swan diving, folding forwards. Tucking the chin in to look towards the legs as you gently sway side to side, just warming up, waking up those hamstrings, coming through to the middle and rolling up, tucking from that tailbone, chin is tucked in, head is the last thing to come up to standing. Inhale, reach the arms out and up, overhead, placing the palms together, pulling the arms back behind the ears, making sure you're tucking your tailbone so your lower back is not arching and you're not sticking out your bum. Arms pull back from the upper back to open up that chest and then swan diving down, folding forwards. Bending your knees, placing your hands flat on the floor, right foot steps back, left foot steps back into a plank. Tailbone is not up to the sky, not arching through that lower back, but tuck it under, activating into the lower core, lower abdominals. Shoulders are over the wrists and press the hands into the floor to spread those shoulder blades apart. Nice and active through those arms, through those shoulders and serratus anterior. Holding that plank for a couple of seconds and then allowing the knees to place down on the ground, keeping the elbows wound backwards towards the hips. Strong core as you lower chin and chest down to the ground. Hips are hovering and then sliding out onto your tummy. Roll the shoulders away from the ears and then inhale, lift, squeezing the chest away from the ground and floating those hands as high off the floor as you can get them. Opening up the chest, squeezing into the upper back, keeping the chin tucked in nice and neutral, and then placing the hands next to the chest, tuck those toes, lift the hips, pushing them back towards the heels, stretching out the arms, stretching out the soles of the feet, and then lifting the hips up towards your downwards facing dog, towards the ceiling. Arms press overhead, lifting up onto the toes, rolling forwards into a plank, pushing the shoulders forwards over the wrists, and then lift the hips up to a downwards facing dog. Up onto your toes, forwards into plank, strong core, and back to your down dog, sinking the heels down. Lift the heels off the ground, roll forwards into your plank, and press it back, downwards facing dog. Lift the right leg up towards the ceiling, lifting up onto your left toes. Bring your right knee to your chest and step it forwards to the top of the mat. Right knee is directly above ankle and then left foot steps up to meet it. Straightening out the legs. Inhale, deep breath in. Reach the arms out and up overhead. Palms to touch and down to heart center. I'm going to interlace the fingers. Press the palms away from you. Drawing the arms up overhead. Arching through the upper back. Tailbone tucks in. Lower abdominals engaged. So you're arching through the upper spine. Stretching through those palms, stretching through that upper back, and then exhale, swan diving down, hands towards the floor. Inhale, halfway lift, straightening out the spine, lifting the chest, squeezing those shoulder blades back together, and lifting that tailbone, flattening out that spine. Exhale, folding forwards, bend the knees. This time your left foot steps back. And then right foot steps back to plank. Shoulders stay over wrists. Core is engaged. Tucking tailbone. No collapsing in the lower back. We're strong in those shoulders. Shoulder blades are spread apart. We're going to rock forward, sending the shoulders over the fingertips. And then press back, stretching the heels towards the ground for a good calf stretch. Press off those toes. Shoulders move forwards over the fingertips. And then heels press back down towards the ground. Shifting forwards, shoulders over fingertips, making sure the core stays nice and strong, and then press back into the heels, stretching out the calves, And then coming to neutral, drop the knees, twist the elbows in, lowering chin and chest down to the ground, hips stay off the floor, and then sliding out onto your tummy. Hands up next to the chest. We inhale, lift the chest away from the ground, squeeze the shoulder blades back towards each other, really rolling them back and down away from the ears, keeping the chin tucked in and neutral neck. Squeeze, 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 lift a little higher, and then place the hands down on the ground, tucking those toes, pushing the hips back towards the heels, stretching out the arms, working down those armpits through the soles of the feet, and then lifting the hips up to the sky, pressing the arms overhead, heels sink to the earth, knees straighten up, untucking that tailbone so we get a big hamstring stretch, and then pressing the arms overhead, working into that upper back, rolling and rounding out of the shoulder blades to give your neck some room to breathe as you melt the chest towards the ground. Left leg lifts up. Right heel lifts off the ground, left foot steps between the hands at the front of the mat into a nice high lunge, and then right foot steps up to meet it, feet together at the top of the mat. Straightening out the legs, inhale, reverse swan dive all the way up, palms to touch, and bring them down to heart center. Inhale, reach the arms up, back behind the head, behind the ears, stretch those fingers towards the sky, tailbone tucks in. Reach over to the left hand side, palms are still together, pressing into the right hip, being sure not to fold forwards, but keeping your body between two imaginary panes of glass, right across to the side. We take it over to the right hand side, pushing into that left hip, stretching into the left side of the body. Reaching the arms up and back behind the ears. Working the upper back, just opening up the chest, and then swan diving down, hands towards the ground. Inhale, halfway lift, lift the tailbone, lift the chest, coming to a nice flat back, then bend the knees, place the hands on the ground, right foot steps back. Left knees directly above left ankle. We're going to press through the left foot and reach the arms up, sinking into your high lunge. Arms pull back behind the ears, right knee is straight, tailbone is tucked under, so you almost want to push that left hip forward, keeping the hips square to the front edge of the mat. Adjust the shoulders away from the ears, and then pull the biceps back behind those ears, holding in that high lunge. Back heel is off the ground, sink a little bit deeper, and then folding forwards, hands to the floor, keeping the right hand underneath the right shoulder, left arm reaches up to the sky, stacking those shoulders, twisting through the spine, keeping the left knee directly above left ankle and not falling open, and right knee stays straight. We're going to drop the right heel down to the ground and then step the left foot back, so we're in a side plank. Left arm is still reaching up towards the ceiling, squeezing into that right hip and right waist, and if you need to drop the right knee to the ground to support your side plank, that is also fine. Place the left hand back underneath the shoulders, rolling onto the toes into your straight plank. Dropping the knees, crossing the ankles. We're going to do 5 push-ups, adjusting into those shoulders, spreading them apart away from the spine, so protracting the shoulder blades, and then adjusting them away from the ears. We're going to lower chin and chest down to the floor, just to hover, and then press all the way back up without losing any activation in the core. Keeping the shoulder blades spread apart so you're not collapsing into that neck and shoulders. Core is engaged, bending at the elbows only, lowering chest towards the floor, and then press all the way back up. So it's a little bit harder than usual. Lowering chest down and up, number 3, down and up, number 4, and last one, down and up for 5. Keeping the core engaged, shoulders are still pressing apart, lowering yourself all the way onto your tummy, feet to the ground, hands next to the chest. Inhale, keeping those elbows tucked next to the rib cage, and then tucking the tailbone, pressing through the floor into your cobra, rolling those shoulders back. Chest opens up, pressing through the earth. Think about opening up that chest, keeping the pelvis connected to the ground, belly buttons pulling away from the floor, and elevating the sternum. Heart opens up towards the sky, relaxing those glutes, and then lowering the chest down to the ground, tucking those toes, hips pulled back towards the heels, tummy to thighs, stretching out those arms, and then lift the hips up towards the ceiling, pressing the arms overhead, sinking the feet down, hip distance apart, straightening out those knees and untucking the tailbone as the arms press overhead. Really working tummy towards your thighs, opening up through the spine, getting a good stretch through those calves, right up the hamstrings. Hands are connected to the ground, index fingers pointing towards the top of the mat. Right foot lifts up. Keep it high, and then left toes lifting up onto your left toes, shifting forwards into your plank, keeping the right leg elevated, straight in line with the rest of your body. Shoulders over wrists in a plank. We're going to bring the right knee to right elbow, squeezing it in without dropping those hips. Keep the shoulder blades spreading apart. We're strong through those shoulders, and then right foot steps to the top of the mat, right between the hands. The more you spread the shoulders, the more room you'll have to place that foot at the front of the mat. We're going to press through the right foot, reach the arms up, sinking into the high lunge. Right knee stays directly above right ankle, arms pull back behind the ears, tucking that tailbone and squaring off those hips to the short edge of the mat. Left knee pulls straight, squeezing the kneecap up the thigh. We're on the ball of the left foot and sinking into that high lunge. Deep breath, then folding forwards, left hand underneath left shoulder, right arm reaches up towards the ceiling, fingertips drawing you up towards the sky, sinking the hips down, left hand used for leverage to twist the body open. So it's not just about the right arm reaching up, it's about using that left arm to twist that chest almost to face the sky. Keeping the hips sinking down. The lower the hips are, the easier it is to get the left hand to the floor so that you can have a nice good leverage. Placing the left hand on the ground and right foot steps on top of the left, opening up into your side plank. Right fingertips are still pulling you up towards the ceiling, squeezing the left hip away from the ground, working into that left oblique, squeezing into the waist, and then right hand places underneath the shoulders, rolling back into a straight high plank. Holding it there, spreading those shoulder blades apart, making sure you're not collapsing, and keep the shoulders away from the ears. Feet are hip distance apart, dropping the knees to the ground, crossing the ankles, lowering the chest down towards the ground, all the way onto your tummy. Hands under the shoulders, press up into your cobra, keeping the pelvis connected to the ground, chest opens up, ribs, elbows are alongside the rib cage. Glutes are relaxed, feet are separated. Tucking those toes, push the hips back towards the heels, stretching out those arms, working the soles of the feet, and then lift the hips up towards the ceiling. Sink the heels down, straightening out the legs, melting the tummy towards the thighs. Crown of the head sinks towards the floor as the arms press overhead. Left leg lifts up, lifting up onto your right toes. Step the left leg to the front of the mat, in between the hands. We drop the right heel down to 45 degrees, reach the arms forwards and up, keeping the hips square into your warrior one. So both hip bones are facing the front edge of the mat. We're working into the outside edge of the right foot and the arms pull back behind the ears, both arms extended straight up towards the sky. Lunging a little bit deeper into that left knee, so the left knee is directly above left ankle, working for a 90-degree. Palms together down to heart center, we swivel open into a warrior two, extending the arms to the opposite ends of the mat. Left hand to the front toes and right hand over the back foot towards the back side of the mat. Adjust the shoulders away from the ears. Tummy is nice and tight, right knee is squeezing straight. Lunge a little deeper into that left leg. Cartwheeling down, one hand either side of the front foot, rolling onto the ball of the back foot. Shuffle the fingertips forwards of that left toe, and then right heel lifts up towards the sky to a 90-degree angle into your warrior three. Floating the hands up to heart center if it's within your practice. Getting the head and heel level with one another as you balance on that left foot. Right toes are pointing towards the ground, which helps to keep the hips square. And then gently floating back up to standing, float that right foot along the ground without touching the floor, and then interlace the fingers as you bring the right knee in towards the chest. So you floated through the center, coming up to standing, and then grasping that knee towards the chest, squeezing with the biceps as you pull towards you without leaning backwards. Then we're slowly going to float, folding forwards once more, extend those arms out ahead of you, and then right leg extends to the back of the mat, still floating up at a good 90 degrees, placing the hands down on the ground, bend that left leg, right foot places on the floor into a high lunge, ball of the foot, and reach the arms up as you sink into the left knee at 90 degrees. Folding forwards, one hand either side of the front foot, stepping back into a plank. Keeping tailbone tucked, shoulders are strong. Lowering knees, chest and chin, or full chaturanga down, lowering the chest down towards the floor, keeping the elbows alongside the ribcage. Press yourself back up for cobra. Drop those shoulders away from the ears, tucking the toes, belly button to spine, lift the hips up straight to down facing dog, arms press overhead, heels sink down towards the ground. Right leg lifts up towards the sky, lifting up onto your left toes. Bring your right knee in towards your chest, press through those arms, and right foot steps to the top of the mat. Drop the left heel down to 45 degrees. We reach the arms forwards and up as you sink into your warrior one on the other side. Right foot's at the front, right knee's directly above right ankle. And then squaring off those hips so that both hip bones are facing the front edge of the mat. Tucking tailbone so there's no arching through that lower back. Active through the core. Palms together down to heart center, opening up the arms, dropping those shoulders away from the ears into your warrior two. Be sure not to lose that right knee lunge and keep the knee squeezing open through that glute to keep the knee above the ankle. Lunge and hold a little deeper, and then cartwheeling down either side of the front foot, roll onto the ball of the back foot, shuffle those fingertips forward to the front of the mat, press through the right leg and lift the left heel up towards the sky to a 90-degree angle. Toes continue to point down towards the floor, hips are square. You don't want to be rotated, that's a slightly different position, so make sure those hips are facing the ground. Lifting the hands up to heart center. Activating the shoulders to keep the back nice and flat, and then slowly pivoting around that supporting leg, floating through the center, and then lifting the left knee up towards the chest, grasping around that knee, interlaced fingers, and pull the knee towards you. Squeezing into those biceps, activating into those back shoulder muscles to hold the knee tight towards the body without leaning back. Strong and secure, and then slowly release the leg, extending it out behind you. Stretch those arms out ahead of you, coming back to a level capital T position. Bend the right knee, drop the left toes towards the ground, reach the arms up towards the ceiling. Keeping the right knee directly above right ankle, we're in our high lunge. Sink it nice and low. Left knee is straight. And then folding forwards, one hand either side of the front foot, stepping back to a plank. Adjusting those shoulders, holding strong through the core. We drop the heels over to the right hand side, left arm lifts up. If you'd like to stack the feet, you can, otherwise one foot in front of the other is also fine. Squeezing into that right waist, strong into that right shoulder. And then floating back to the middle, left hand under left shoulder, heels drop over to the left. Right arm reaches up towards the sky, stacking those shoulders, a great capital T across those arms, squeezing into the left waist, strong core. Again, if you need to drop the left knee to the ground for your plank, that's fine. Rolling up back over into your normal plank. Drop the knees, cross the ankles, or of course you can do a normal chaturanga, down towards the ground, and then pressing up for cobra. Elbows are tucked in alongside the rib cage. Roll those shoulders back, pulling belly button away from spine to protect the lower back and relaxing those glutes. So heels are not squeezing together, not squeezing off the floor. Tucking those toes, push the hips back towards the heels, stretching out those arms and then lifting the hips up to the sky. Sink the heels down, straightening out those legs, press the arms overhead, downwards facing dog. You're going to place the weight into the right hand, reaching across with the left hand towards the right ankle. So a slight twist. The more you press into the right hand, the easier it is to reach across. Left hand places to the ground, right hand reaches for the left ankle. If it can only touch the calf, that's also fine, but working towards those legs as much as possible. Right hand places back down towards the ground. Bend the knees, placing tummy on the thighs, looking to the top of the mat, and then jumping the feet between the hands at the top of the mat, or just walking forwards. Inhale, reverse swan dive all the way up, tucking that tailbone, palms to touch, and down to heart center. Lifting up onto those toes, heels lift off the floor, and hold. Few breaths. If you want to challenge yourself, you can close your eyes if it's too easy. Otherwise, just keep those heels squeezing off the ground. Ankles are squeezing together. A few more seconds, and then lower the heels down to the ground. Inhale, reach the arms up overhead. Tailbone stays tucked, and exhale, swan diving down, placing the hands on the ground, then sliding them up the shins to a tabletop position. Exhale, folding forwards, bend the knees, place the hands on the floor, right foot steps back. Drop the back heel down to 45 degrees, we cartwheel straight up to warrior two. Left hand to the left side of the mat, right hand towards the back side of the mat. Tailbone is tucked. We're going to drop the right hand down towards the right calf. Left arm reaches overhead. Turning the palm to face the floor, we're reversing our warrior, keeping the left knee directly above the left ankle, a nice 90 degrees. Coming back up to warrior two, bend the left elbow, placing it onto the left knee, and then right arm reaches over for your extended side angle. And then to challenge yourself today, we're going to place that left hand on the inside of the left foot. The lower you get your hips, the easier it is to get the hand down to the ground, and if you can place the flat hand on the floor, go right ahead. Right hand reaches around into the small of the lower back. Think about opening up those shoulders and stacking, or opening up the chest and stacking those shoulders. The right hand can slide right down the back, and then left hand is going to tuck underneath the thigh to grasp hands behind you. Otherwise, keep supporting on the left hand so that you don't fall over. Holding it there. If you can bind, great. If not, that's no big deal, so long as you're working towards it. The left thigh is certainly going to be working hard regardless. Placing the left hand on the ground and then drawing yourself back up to standing. Right fingers extend to warrior two, and then cartwheel down either side of the front foot, stepping back to a plank. We're going to throw in a couple more push-ups here. So keeping those shoulder blades spread apart, core is engaged. We lower chin and chest down to the ground and pressing up. If you need to drop the knees in order to do so, that's fine. Number 3, and press up. 4, elbows stay pointing back. And then last one, 5, and all the way up. Lowering chest towards the ground, untucking those toes, press through the earth for your cobra. Pelvis stays connected to the ground. Roll those shoulders open. Tucking the toes, belly button in towards spine, pulling away from the ground. Lift the hips up towards the ceiling, downwards facing dog. Arms press overhead. Right leg lifts up towards the sky, lifting up onto your left toes. Bring your right knee in towards the chest and step it between the hands. Drop the back heel down to 45 degrees. We cartwheel up to warrior two. Adjust those shoulders away from the ears. Right hand to the front side of the mat, left hand to the back side of the mat. Right knee is open, dropping the left hand down towards the left calf without losing that right knee lunge, and then reach that right arm overhead towards the back side of the mat, palm is facing towards the ground. Coming back up to warrior two, bending the right elbow, placing it onto the right thigh, left arm reaches overhead, palm faces the floor, extended side angle, straight line from left ankle through the hip up to those fingertips. And then slowly lower the right hand down towards the inside of the right foot, and left hand reaches around the back. Using both shoulders to twist you open, stacking the shoulders and lifting the chest towards the sky. If comfortable, wrap the right hand underneath the thigh and grasp the hands behind you. Holding that lunge, extending through the left foot. Breathing into your twist, into your bind. If you can't bind, so long as you're reaching, your body will learn how to open up with time. Placing the right hand underneath the shoulder, left arm reaches up and then pulls you back up to warrior two. Cartwheeling down either side of the front foot, roll onto the ball of the back foot and step up, feet together at the top of the mat. Straightening out those legs, inhale, reverse swan dive all the way up. Palms to touch and down to heart center, shoulders are open. Tucking the tailbone. You're going to take a deep breath in, reach the arms out and up overhead, pulling the arms back behind the ears, and then swan diving, folding forwards, bending the knees, placing the hands on the floor. Left foot steps back this time. Drop the left knee down to the ground and flip the toes. Reaching the arms up towards the ceiling as you sink into those hips. Keeping the right knee directly above the right ankle. You don't want that knee going beyond the toes. So make sure it's a nice big step forward with that right foot. And then trying to keep those hips nice and square as you sink into the floor. Tucking the tailbone and pulling the belly button away from the thigh, or pull the tummy away from the thigh as you sink into those hips, and then folding forwards, one hand either side of that leg, straightening out the right knee as you pull the hips back over the left knee. Again, you don't want to be sitting on the heel, you want to keep the hips directly above that knee. Pointing the right toes, keeping the right leg nice and straight, you're going to try and straighten out the spine and fold forwards onto that right leg for a gorgeous hamstring stretch. Try as much as possible to square off the hips as well, so that you really increase the stretch down the hamstrings. If you absolutely have to lift the toes on the right foot, that's fine too. Bringing the body forwards, lunging into that right knee again. We're going to place both hands on the inside of that right foot and then roll to the outside edge of the right foot. Pressing the right knee open and supporting your body with the left hand. You can either use the right hand to press the knee open, or you can support the body with both hands and really sink the weight with gravity in towards the floor. So find what works best for you to get the best stretch right into that hip socket and across that left hip flexor. If the right ankle is not loving it, especially if you have a history of ankle sprains, feel free to stay flat on the foot and then only work the knee open. Rolling onto the sole of the foot, taking the right hand to the outside of the right foot, lift the knee off the ground and then step back to your plank. Strong with the shoulders over the wrists, tailbone is tucked. We lower the chin and chest to the ground, press it up for cobra, tuck the toes, belly button to spine, and lift the hips up to downwards facing dog. Sink the heels to the ground. Right leg lifts up to the sky, lift up onto the left toes and bring the right knee into the right elbow just to hover, and then kick it back, three-legged downwards facing dog. Press the arms overhead. Shift forwards into plank, right knee to right elbow again. Kick it back up, three-legged downward dog. Shift forwards, knee to elbow. Kick it back up, three-legged down dog. Knee to elbow forwards and back up, three-legged down dog, and shifting forwards, knee to elbow, holding it this time. Then lower the knee to the floor and up the forearm. Number 2, slide it down and up. 3, 4, and 5. Kick that right leg back up towards the sky and placing it back down on the floor. Feet to the ground, soles of the feet sending towards the floor. Placing the big toes together, opening up the knees to the outside edge of the mat and sink the hips back towards the heels, stretching out those arms for your extended child's pose. Melting the tummy between those thighs, shoulders are relaxed, hips are pulling right down towards those heels. And breathe, giving those shoulders a chance to recover. Walking the hands over to the left-hand side, so your tummy's on your left thigh, stretching the hands to a sort of 10 to 10 position, Right arm pulls right away, so we get a really big stretch under that right arm, into the lats, into the rib cage, and maybe into the right lower back as well if it's particularly tight. And then walking the hands over to the right hand side, 10 past 2. Hips continue to pull down towards the heels and left arm stretches away, big side bend through the left hand side of the body. Deep and steady breaths. Walking the hands back to the center, and then lift the hips, tuck the toes, and lift up into your downwards facing dog. Ready for the other side. So left leg lifts up towards the ceiling. 3-legged down dog. Lift up onto your right toe, shift forwards to your plank. Left knee brings to left elbow, squeezing it in using that core, and then kicking it back up, 3-legged down dog. Shift forwards, knee to elbow, and back up, 3-legged down dog. Number 3, and kick it back, pressing into down dog. Squeeze in for 4, and back. And last one in for 5, holding it there at the elbow and down the forearm up to elbow. 2, 3, 4, and 5. Kicking it back up to downwards facing dog and placing the foot back down on the ground. Placing the big toes together, opening up the knees again, unflipping the toes, sit the hips back down to the heels and stretch the arms out ahead of you, melting the tummy between those thighs for your extended child's pose. Few deep breaths, allowing the core and shoulders to relax. Melting, tucking that tailbone under so we get a good stretch into those hips. Gently releasing your stretch, tuck the toes, lift the hips up, push the arms overhead. Left leg lifts up towards the ceiling, lifting up onto your right toes. Bring your left knee to the chest and step the foot to the front of the mat. Right knee drops down, unflip those right toes and reach the arms up, sinking into your low lunge. Keeping the left knee directly above left ankle, not going beyond the toes. Squaring off the hips to face the short edge of the mat and then pulling the tummy away from the thighs, tucking the tailbone, activating into that lower core so that you're not overarching through the lower back. Working across that right hip flexor. Sink a little bit deeper, pulling the arms behind the head and then folding forwards, one hand either side of the front foot. Folding forwards onto that left leg as you pull the hips back over the right knee, pointing into those left toes and folding onto that left leg. Trying to square off those hips as much as possible so we really get a good stretch into the left hamstring. Nice straight spine. Breathing into your stretch. Sinking the hips forward, left knee comes above left ankle. We place both hands on the inside of the feet and then roll to the outside edge of that left foot, sinking the pelvis towards the ground and opening up that left knee, using your left hand to press it open if comfortable. Maybe just to start by pressing it open, finding that good stretch, and then supporting the weight with both hands, but working with your practice today, working with what your body needs, the amount of support your body requires. So you sink into those hips, working across the right hip flexor and left hip socket. Taking the left hand to the outside of the left foot, tucking right toes, lift the knee off the ground and step to the top of the mat, straightening out the legs. Inhale, reverse swan dive all the way up, palms to touch and down to heart center. Tailbone is tucked, core is engaged. We're going to lift up onto our toes, squeezing the ankles together. Tummy's nice and tight. Tailbone tuck, so we're active through the lower core. And then we're going to tuck the tailbone right down to the heels, lowering the body down to the floor, keeping those heels off the ground if possible. To a little squat on the toes. And then slowly rock those heels back, soles of the feet to the ground, finding your seat in the center of the mat and moving those feet forwards. Stretching those arms out parallel to the ground, we're going to lean back to 45 degrees, roll those shoulders back so the spine is nice and straight. Lift the one leg, then lift the other leg, up to parallel to the ground. Try not to round the back, but open up the chest, lifting the chest up towards the ceiling. Strong core, keeping the shoulders away from the ears. Tummy is nice and tight, and then straightening out those legs. Squeezing those knees straight, drawing the kneecaps up the thighs. Holding for a few breaths. 4, 3, 2, 1, and release the feet down. Feet are hip distance apart. We're going to tuck the tailbone and roll all the way back down on the ground. Arms alongside the body, turning the palms up to face the sky. Bring the heels in close towards the bum. We're going to tuck the tailbone and roll your way up towards the ceiling, and then rolling from the ribcage, uncurling all the way down. Tilt the tailbone, roll it up, and roll it down, making sure to pull in from the ribcage and uncurling the tailbone. Tailbone's the last thing to touch the ground. Tilt it away from the floor, peeling the spine off the ground. Squeeze, squeeze, squeeze through those glutes without flaring or arching out the ribcage, and then rolling back down one vertebra at a time, imprinting into the spine. Tilt the tailbone, roll it up, making sure your knees are not flopping apart, and rolling down. Roll it up, and squeeze and hold. Placing the weight into the left heel, pressing it into the ground. We're going to lift the right knee up to 90 degrees, trying to keep those hips level as you lift it, and then right foot places back down. Left foot lifts up, pressing through the right heel, and left foot places down, lifting up for number 3. And down, left foot lifts number 4, and down, right foot 5, and down, 6, pressing through those heels to squeeze up from the glutes. 8, last 2, 9, and 10. Placing the foot down on the ground, tucking through the ribs, core is engaged, glutes are tight, and rolling one vertebra at a time down to the ground. Thank you for joining me in this practice today. I hope you got a good workout and a good stretch, and I look forward to having you join me again next time.